On this episode of Legends with JBL, my interview with Sting.
Starrcade 97.
Sting is the world heavyweight champion.
What was your take of backstage politics that day? You start seeing the ratings change. Did you know at that point that this is going badly?
Oh, I felt like it was done.
Was your loyalty to WCW, or was it a matter of you didn't trust WWE? All of a sudden, you had a problem with your neck. Were you worried that it was something very serious? You feel like there's unfinished business?
This isn't goodbye, it's just see you later.
I think deep down you still want that match with The Undertaker. One word, icon. A name synonymous with WCW. When WCW had to compete with WrestleMania, they sent this man out there. He headlined the first Monday Night Nitro and the last. He set the record for pay-per-view buys at the Great American Bash in 1990 and set it again in 1997 with Starrcade. In the middle of his career, he saw the trend coming of the anti-hero and successfully switched characters. He has held 25 championships over his career. The dream matchups, the fantasy bookings never happened due to this man's loyalty. He is one of the few wrestlers in history that no one has ill feelings toward. He is a WWE Hall of Famer. This is a man called Sting. Sting, it's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. What an intro. I mean, but I don't understand the part about no ill feelings toward me. I mean, what about all the fantasy bookings and all the matches that didn't happen?
That came from the hardcore fans. I don't understand the part about ill feelings either. You look at the history of professional wrestling. You look at the Gotchas. You look at Rogers, Hulkamania. Look at San Martino, Flair. Everybody had somebody they had a personal problem with. I did a ton of research on you this week. Arn Anderson, the old grumpy bear Arn Anderson. I said, I'm interviewing Sting. He said, tremendous individual. That's all he said. Didn't tell me anything about your career.
Oh,
and
man.
I get that from everybody. Did you go out of your way? Was it a cognitive thought for you to treat people well, or is it just something that was inherent? Because the only person I know like it is The Undertaker, where no one has anything bad to say about him. Was this a cognitive thought on your part that you actually are going out of your way to treat people well, or was just something inherent in you that people liked you and don't have anything bad to say about you? Because it's a remarkable accomplishment.
Yeah, it must be just something that's already in me. Of course, everybody, I want to treat everybody the way I would like to be treated. And one thing that I learned really early on is you never know who you might be working for. I mean, from the guy that builds or puts the ring up, I mean, it could be the guy you end up working for 6 months later. Because this business creates people that just come from the woodworks out of nowhere and all of a sudden, running a company. So,
but it's so rare for a person to be on top, because inherent with that position comes a lot of jealousy, a lot of animosity. For you, for some reason, even when the NWO came in, they liked you personally. It says something that's a testament to me about your character.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's all I can say.
It must be.
I mean, I can't complain.
You were late getting into wrestling. At age 21, you started falling in love with bodybuilding. And then about age 25 or 26, that's when Rick Bassman first came into your gym. And Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, was there.
Right.
And that's when you first decided and went out to L.A. and saw the show. Was that one of the first wrestling matches that you had ever seen?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in an area in Southern California, Santa Clarita. We didn't have pro wrestling on TV. So fast forward years later, when Rick Bassman comes into the gym that I co-owned at the time, this big guy with blonde hair would walk in and work out, and the whole gym would go, who is it? Who is that? That's Hulk Hogan. And I'd heard the name Hulk Hogan, but didn't know who he was or what it was all about. And they said, it's a guy from the Rocky movie. Rick Bassman comes in, and he's trying to break in with some guys, and he hits on me and says, what about you? Because he couldn't get that fourth guy. And so I ended up going to the sports arena in Los Angeles. Jim Hellwig was there, and there were two other guys that went with us that they just never did anything. Don't even know what happened with those guys. But Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, the British Bulldogs, Iron Sheik, Adrian Adonis. I mean, It's like everybody was there, and it was, you know, the 80s term pandemonium, you know, and it was pandemonium. I said, you know what, I really want to do this.
Did you fall in love with the fact that, hey, this is something that everybody wants to be a part of, or did you fall in love with these characters that were out there and thought, that's pretty cool, I'd like to be part of that?
It was the whole package. It was the rush of the crowd, the athleticism in the ring, the storytelling in the ring, the personalities and characters, the fans, the noise, the smell, I mean, every part of it. It was just the whole package.
And Red Bastien was the one that ended up breaking you in, right?
Yes.
And you're trying to learn something completely new in your mid-20s that you had never even watched before.
Right.
And you start sending off press kits all over like we used to do, all over the world, and the only answer was from Jerry Jarrett.
Right.
And he wanted just 2 of you, which ended up being you and the Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, he moved in with me and sent that press kit that you were talking about, 4 of us on the picture, and Jerry Jarrett says, and Hellwig and I were talking on the phone inside the house. He's on one line, I'm on the other, and Jerry says, yeah, you know what, I like you guys, but I don't need all 4, I just need 2 of you. Which 2? I want the 2 guys to the far left. That was Hellwig and me.
And then you go out to Memphis, and I saw an interview you did recently that at times you thought, you know what, I'd really like to just drive back to California. Because you slept in your car a couple times, you're making no money, and all of a sudden that lifestyle that you saw at the Sports Center with Hulk Hogan and Adrian Adonis didn't translate.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to say this now, but I mean, trying to get that protein in, Hellwig and me, we'd go into the grocery stores and get those hot chickens, you know, that are already pre-cooked.
Right.
Put them in the basket with all some other groceries and go up and down those aisles and until there was nobody around, and pull that chicken out, and we'd start stuffing that chicken breast in our mouths and stuff it back on a shelf somewhere and continue our shopping. We got chased out of a grocery store or 2. Again, not proud of that, but we actually did it. That was a pretty trying time for sure. No money, and, you know, we were looking to try to, you know, make it and get big matches with, you know, the Road Warriors and all these people. And things were not going good money-wise, you know, working for Bill Watts at the time. So we had a job in the making with Fritz right in Dallas. And we had to work enough to get at least 1 more paycheck. He was, Watts was holding a few paychecks. So I went back and did this last shot at Little Rock, Arkansas. Made the 250-mile drive, followed Terry Taylor 100 miles an hour to make the shot, but just to get my money and to help us afford the trip to Dallas. And Jim got ticked off, man.
That you made the shot.
Oh yeah, he thought, no, you did it without me. I said, Jim, I tried to find you. You know, I looked all over the place for you. God bless him. You know, I miss him. But he was very, very intense, but that was an experience for me. I had to really work at it to get along with him. But, you know, we did. We got along.
Hellwig goes to Fritz's territory there in Dallas, becomes the Dingo Warrior. Was actually going to be the original Vader in Japan and signed with WWE at the time. And then Leon White took the Vader role, in which you had a huge role with later in WCW.
Yeah.
You stayed with UWF, which ended up getting sold to Jim Crockett Promotions. You were about the only one that got taken care of in that entire
Rick Steiner
acquisition.
Yeah, Rick Steiner was another one of them. I mean, there were a few, like a handful of guys.
When Crockett was trying to compete, you're now with Jim Crockett Promotions by result of this acquisition. You were part of that whole process. After WrestleMania 3, the huge success, you guys had Starrcade on Thanksgiving, following up with a pay-per-view. WWE put on Survivor Series for the first time against Jim Crockett Promotions and allegedly told all the cable providers, you won't get WrestleMania 4 if you take Jim Crockett Promotions. That kind of set off a chain of events. Bunkhouse Stampede came in January. That's when WWE put on a free show, the Royal Rumble, against that pay-per-view. And then came your big break, WrestleMania 4, where you put the Clash of the Champions and your first big match with Ric Flair, the 45 time limit draw, which drew a huge rating for TBS, drew a 5.6 rating. Were you aware at that time of these events going on, this war going on between especially Vince and Jim Crockett, and what was at stake?
I was aware of it, but kind of oblivious at the same time, you know, just still so young and just really looking out for myself.
But you knew it was a major role. You're going up against WrestleMania 4,
Yeah.
and this is your first big shot.
Right.
Nature Boy. Did Rick pick you for this?
I would have to say he did. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I would have to say that he did, because, you know, we did that little storyline in Raleigh, North Carolina, you know, where JJ, his manager, throws a Ric Flair Day. They're all in their tuxes and celebrating Ric Flair, and here comes this young Sting, and JJ gets involved, and he throws the champagne in my face, and the big fight and the big war, and that thing worked. I mean, and I think Rick saw, you know, I think he saw dollar signs at the time. He said, man, I think I can do something with this kid.
And it ended up being correct, of course. Going from Jim Crockett Promotions, then it gets bought out by Ted Turner.
Right.
You're seeing the demise of the territorial system. The AWA at the same time was folding underneath Vern Gagne. Was there ever any thought of, you know, I think I'd like to go to New York during that time? Or were you just, you were getting such a push in WCW that you thought, hey, this is my home? Mm-hmm. Was that the thought?
Yeah, I mean, I did talk to Vince, you know, way back when.
During that time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did, and I had thoughts of it for sure, because I was watching everybody leave and everybody go, and pretty soon I was like the only one left. But every time, WCW would always, the heads who are, you know, changed over the years, from Jim Herd to all these different people. Anyway, I would work out a deal that was good for me financially, and so they took care of me. And it was always one of those, oh, we see no precedent for this kind of money. That, well, you know, I'm ready to leave, and I'll take my chances up in New York if, you know, if I have to. And they always gave me what I wanted, and could kind of dictate my schedule to some degree, even way back when. So that was good too, because I wanted to get back home, you know, to the family.
Right. Kevin Nash said about you some very complimentary things, but one thing he said about you that seems to ring true, it's like a major league pitcher making it to the Hall of Fame, not being able to throw a fastball, being at WCW without the merchandise and the marketing machine behind you. You mentioned one time going to a NAPD convention and showing up, and the WWE guys were treated like royalty, and here you are, everything. You really are the franchise for WCW, and you're treated like a second-class citizen.
I'm telling you, man, that trip to the NAPD convention was unreal. They sent a kid I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time. It was right in Dallas, and they sent this, it was a kid. I mean, a kid, like a 17-year-old kid, in a little subcompact car of some kind. So we go down to the hotel, the convention center, and I go up to my room. They got a room at least for me, get all painted up, neon colors, blonde flat top haircut and the jacket and all this. And this kid, again, okay, he's driving me through this, and he's going to go in the front. And I said, wait. There's got to be a way in the back. There's got to be an athlete's entrance, a place where the stars are supposed to go. And I don't know where to go. So I'm directing him. We go around this building. They're like, who are you? You know. Finally, I end up on these escalators about 3 stories high, going like this, and all the suits and ties and, you know, fans and people. And here I am with my bag over my shoulder, painted face, neon this and that, and we're going up this escalator like this. And as I go up this escalator, the noise is getting louder. I can hear Mean Gene Okerlund's voice. You're going to see Coco Beware. You're going to see Hulk Hogan like you've never seen him before. You're going to see live wrestling matches. And I come up this escalator going, oh, no. And I round the corner, and the little girl named Heidi, who was WCW's PR person that I was supposed to meet, she says, hey, Sting. And she takes me to the WCW, whatever you want to call it. And there was a little podium there with a piece of paper like this that somebody penciled drew a picture of a scorpion that said Stinger, with a TV in the background that they were going to stick a tape in and watch, you know, WCW tapes. And right over here, you could see a ring and all these wrestling superstars and a gigantic, and Mean Gene Okerlund is still in the ring. And I went, Heidi, I can't do this. This is an embarrassment. And I walked out.
Did a lot of guys in WCW feel the same way? I mean, there you were. You headlined more pay-per-views than anybody in WCW, appeared in more than anybody in WCW. You beat WWE for 84 weeks at one point. You were equal competition. But the whole presentation was so different between WWE and WCW outside of television. Did that bother a lot of guys there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we knew we were second-class citizens. I mean, you have no idea how many times, even in the heyday of WCW, when we were kicking butt in the ratings and we were now #1, even in those days, I would do different interviews and always so embarrassing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have WWE superstar Sting with us today. So Sting, tell us about, you know, I would just go along with the interview. I would just do it, but it's like, wow.
During that time, after Bill Watts, apparently morale was at a low there. Business was bad in WWE and WCW. Eric Bischoff came in and became the #1 guy. And by Eric's own admission, he was a third-string announcer, and all of a sudden now he's the boss.
That's what I mean about earlier, about you never know who you might be working for. Good example.
Well, what do the guys think? I mean, here's this announcer who's not even on the main shows, and all of a sudden now he's running the company.
Right.
Did people think, what in the world are they thinking?
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that, but we had already seen a number of people, you know, Ted Turner's buddy, you know, who ended up running the company, or an ex-Pizza Hut CEO guy who knew nothing about wrestling. And so for us, it was like, okay, well, now they've really hit rock bottom because they took a third-rate, third-string, you know, announcer, and he's running the company now? So, yeah, I mean, it did hit us, but it wasn't like a major shock because we'd already been through so much.
You just knew crazy things were happening all around you.
Yeah.
With the first Nitro, you headlined the first Nitro and the last Nitro, both with Ric Flair. But one of the biggest things that happened was something that Bischoff didn't really want, and that was your friend Lex Luger came in. You mentioned it to Eric. Eric did not really want Luger at the time.
I hired Lex as a courtesy to Sting, who I had a lot of respect for. I didn't have any respect for Lex at that time. Was not excited at all to work with him. I didn't look at him as a big asset or a WWE star that I didn't look at him that way.
But it turned out being one of the best things he did because it brought in a WWE guy out of the blue that people still thought was a WWE guy onto your show.
Yeah, maybe, and that's probably true, that Eric maybe had some reservations about Lex because he did have a reputation. But man, I thought, wow, I mean, to get him back, he had already built such a huge foundation with WCW already. It was already there. It's our turnkey deal. And so I thought it would be just a win-win for everybody, and it was.
I just got to ask you, Starrcade 97, there was a lot of backstage politics that day. What was your take of what was going on backstage? I've talked to Eric Bischoff. He thought that there was a lack of commitment on your part, that he and Hogan felt that from you. Was that true?
I think they may have convinced themselves of that at the time. And I'm not so sure about Hulk. But no, I was having some personal issues at the time, but it was not affecting my work in the ring. You know, I was not doing house shows and all that. But really, it was just one of those deals where we had a plan, and everything was in motion, and, you know, wrestling fans were still completely, you know, biting into every ounce of that bone that they possibly could with fervor. And why...
You're still winning at that time.
Yeah. Why are we going to change now, you know? And it was, suddenly there was potentially a change.
Right.
So lots of meetings, you know, with Bischoff and me, with Hogan and Bischoff, with Hogan and me, and it's like, you know, and literally going through the curtains. Going through the curtain is when we get the final, here's what we're going to do, you know.
Right.
Where everybody agreed, okay, this is what we're going to do.
You think you did the right thing in hindsight?
I think that the whole thing ended up getting botched up, and I'm still not sure exactly what happened with that, but I was disappointed because I felt like there was such a huge build-up for the wrestling fans, and the match, and it didn't follow.
The Scorpion Deathlock! Pointing at Bret Hart! Trying to get him over. Can he get him turned? There it is! Set down on him! Check it out! Bret Hart down! Hart's right in Hogan's face!
The winner, and new heavyweight
champion of the world, Sting! Baby, the crowning jewel for WCW.
The crowd seemed to react really, really well, but I could tell it wasn't the same.
And then after that, you had Mike Tyson coming along for WWE, WrestleMania, and you start seeing the ratings change. Did you know at that point that Time Warner acquisition had a big part of it, too? Eric had a lot of handcuffs put on him by being all of a sudden as part of a corporation instead of just working for Ted Turner. So there were a lot of things that were going on, external factors as well. Did you see at that point, a couple years later, when WWE starts winning, that this is going badly? And this probably won't end well. Did you feel that?
Yeah. Oh, I felt like it was done. I mean, if you have an opportunity to grab it and take it, you better hold on to it. If you don't, chances are you're never going to get it back again. How could we come back? How could we do it again? You know, the unity that we had seemed to be gone, and now you had factions and groups here and groups there, and and the guys were kind of, man, all in their own worlds, and we just separated.
And if you could put it in a nutshell, what went so wrong at that point? You guys had the world by the tail at one point. And then, I mean, it's almost Shakespearean. You guys went from being the #1 show. There's never been anything like this, by the way. There's never been a live television show go up against another live television show for competition. As far as the same genre, you know, NFL doesn't put 2 games on at the same time from competing companies. They do.
Yeah.
They do from different markets and things like that. But if you could pinpoint it, what do you think went wrong?
It's a combination of what went wrong and what we had to compete against, because our hands were tied as well. We couldn't put out what you guys were putting out. We were a family-owned TV station, Ted Turner, family-oriented station.
Right.
So we could not push the envelope like you guys were pushing the envelope.
What's up with those girls anyway, huh?
We got to a place where we couldn't compete with what was being aired. And then at the same time, you had this disunity, this, everybody out for themselves, and, things just changed.
And at that time, you had a huge change in your life.
We all had our demons, at some point.
And all of a sudden, you accept Christ into your life. And at that point, your lifestyle changed completely. That transition, did you have a problem that you thought maybe you would have been better off, say, in rehab? Was it that, had it gotten that bad, or was it just a matter of now you just, you know what, now my life's priorities are different?
Yeah. No, it was August of 1998, and being on the road and, working every day and being a human Super Bowl and the stress of it being pulled in so many different directions, and man, it took its toll. And so I should have gone to rehab, but for me, I just, you mentioned Jesus Christ. I gave my life to Jesus Christ and didn't go to a 12-step program. It was a 1-step Jesus Christ, and everything changed from that day in August forward.
It's very rare when you see a paradigm shift in anything, but you could track it easily in professional wrestling. It's when you and Hogan both went away from that good old babyface look to the dark characters. Did you have a lot of hesitation about that? Because that's a massive gamble that you took, as was Hogan taking a massive gamble as well.
Yeah, I was watching, the Say Your Prayers, Take Your Vitamins and all that, Hulk Steel. I was watching him start to get booed, and the fans were starting to react in a way that it just wasn't. It wasn't good for the business. I mean, you can get booed and it's good for the business, but this, to me, wasn't good. I could see things were changing. I could see wrestling was changing, and, NWO had made their little black and white, gritty-looking, video.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Action.
And I thought, wow, I need to change. I need to change quick. The blonde flat top haircut, the neon colors, that was all kind of fading away now, and I knew it. And so, I was looking for something, yeah, I remember being in Casper, Wyoming, I believe it was, with Eric Bischoff and Scott Hall, and Scott said, yeah, why don't you just, paint your face white, put some black around there, wear a trench coat. And I thought, yeah, kind of got a little vision in my head, and that's what happened. And it was risky because it's like one of those things, your character changes from, it's black and white. It changes from one way, and now you're going to do something completely different. What a risk.
You're still at that point. You're still very popular, and you're making this seismic shift.
Yeah.
Did you know right away it was going to work?
No, I didn't. I didn't until the very first night, being up in the rafters, and, camera got me up there, and the crowd, the way they reacted and all that. I thought, wow, this might really work.
That's Sting. That is Sting occupying. Where is he anyway? Way high up above the fans, almost like up in one of those, around those luxury boxes up there.
Now, you mentioned that Scott Hall gave you the idea to transition to the darker character.
Eric, Sting is wearing black and white.
And like you said, the NWO was doing something similar at the time. The rumor was that you were scheduled to be the third member. You talked to Eric Bischoff or Kevin Nash. They mentioned that you originally were that guy. Were you supposed to be the third member of the NWO?
Yeah, this question comes up all the time, and I'll say uncle. Okay, maybe I did, maybe I was penciled in, but some of this stuff I am forgetting. Some of it is turning into a blur. So I've done interviews where Eric's is adamant about it. Okay, uncle, it happened. I just don't remember.
You were in the midst of changing your character. Would you have done it?
Yeah, I would have. I mean, if done right, yeah.
Right.
But I always wanted to be on my own, so, it would have had to have been done in a way that made sense to me.
What was the thoughts when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash came in, and you had a very fractured dressing room, from what I understand?
Yeah.
But you're starting to win. Does winning cure all ills at that point?
Well, it sure didn't for us. In the beginning, it was really good. Fractured dressing room, yes. And Scott and Kevin, they did bring something in that was, maybe needed. Some of it. And it led to a bunch of people collectively being creative, not just for themselves, but there was unity. After a while, there was some unity because the success was happening. And the creative juices were just flowing everywhere, and everybody. Eric was getting ideas from really everybody. He was going up into the crowds and sitting in the nosebleed sections up there and listening to what fans were saying and listening to the reactions as to each individual wrestler would come out and do their entrance and have their match and really getting a feel for what the fans wanted to see, and the unity that was the key. Suddenly things were just really, really good. Then the dressing room was a pretty good place, for the first time really ever. And of course, the rest is history. It ended up going down.
But at that time, were you thinking that you're going to win the rating war continually, that you're going to become the #1 company finally, not the second-class citizen? And did you think also, or otherwise, that you're going to put WWE out of business? Did y'all feel that way?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of that going on, but, we had friends that were up there and vice versa, so it's like, I don't think the boys ever really wanted to see WWE shut down, but we did finally realize one day, wow, we made it. We're #1. This is unreal. We're no longer second-class citizens. We're first-class citizens now. And then we heard rumors that maybe Vince was going to shut down. We heard these were just rumors. Wow, I mean, that was intense. I mean, it's like I couldn't believe it.
Right.
Then within a matter of no time at all, it was all of a sudden the ratings started to come back like this, and then there was Vince, that last one, Panama City, which I'm probably jumping the gun here. You probably don't want me to do it, but to me, Vince's interview that day was like one of the best interviews I've ever seen ever, because, I mean, he's, if you want to compete with a billionaire, you gotta become a billionaire, and he said, I took Ted Turner and I goozled him.
You have to grab your competition by the throat, and you've got to squeeze the life out of your competition, just like I did to WCW.
I went, wow, that's a shoot. And are you seeing, at that point, are you seeing deja vu? I mean, because UWF got sold to Crockett, Crockett got sold to Ted Turner, and now Ted Turner's going to get sold to Vince McMahon. Are you seeing deja vu all over again? Like, come on, what's this guy got against me?
Yeah, no, yeah, I really did. I thought, man, this was, I always use the term surreal for that last show in Panama and in Cleveland. You guys were in Cleveland. Man, is this really happening after all those years? Second class, all those years, NATI convention, wait, all flashing before my eyes. All the matches against Flair, all the Four Horsemen and Luger and all the guys and all the travel and wait, this is not happening right now. I mean, it was like, you know, the enemy came into the camp and they were taking the women and kids away, you know, and it's just like, it was surreal. What an unreal situation.
Was your loyalty to WCW, was it a matter of loyalty or was it a matter of you didn't trust WWE? Was that why you stayed? Did you stay out of loyalty or did you stay out of distrust for what Vince you thought might do?
I always had this undercurrent of a suspicion or whatever. Just always had this feeling that Vince wanted me more to undermine WCW than he did as a talent. I think in the very beginning it wouldn't have been that way, but over the years I always got that feeling, and you know, I watched what happened with, you know, some of the guys when they came here, and I just never trusted it. So
you mentioned in an interview I saw about Booker T. Booker T came right away, as did Diamond Dallas Page. And I think you had mentioned that Booker T clears the ring, and all of a sudden he bumps into The Rock, and The Rock turns around and goes, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And you thought that was just a direct shot at WCW, and at least what the interview that I saw with you, that was part of what closed your mind to, you know what, I'm not going to go up there and give them the satisfaction of getting the Sting character.
I had those thoughts, yeah. I really did. You know, and you know what it is to be one of the boys, especially when you're entrenched in all this stuff and all this second guessing, and you know, and I'm thinking, man, if I go up there, I don't trust it. I just don't trust it.
There was rumors that have come out later. I didn't hear them at the time. But WrestleMania 18, that you were penciled in to wrestle Kurt Angle. That was 2002. So apparently your contract had just expired, and WWE wanted you to come in. Were you close at that time? Is there any credibility to that rumor?
Yeah, no, I remember talking with Vince around that time, and it seemed like, you know, with Vince on the phone with me, everything's great, but his attorney or WWE attorneys and my attorney, and now all of a sudden there's trouble, and I think, you know, bottom line is I think that at the time Vince wanted more of a commitment out of me than I was willing to give.
You went, after that, to TNA for quite a long time, despite the fact that they weren't necessarily competition, but you stayed loyal to TNA. You missed an entire, almost decade of matchups with Shawn Michaels, with Undertaker, with Stone Cold Steve Austin, with The Rock, with Brock Lesnar. All these incredible things you could have done on this spotlight of WrestleMania. Do you look back at that and think, man, I kind of wish now I'd gone there in 2002.
You know, just the way you presented that right now, I'd be an idiot to say, oh, I did the right thing.
Like, to heck with those guys. It wasn't a very fair question. I didn't, that wasn't very fair.
Man, no.
Because everybody wanted to see it. And you know,
I wanted to see it. You know, yeah. I mean, but again, I just had this feeling, and I didn't want to make the commitment to be gone that much. You know, that was one of the reasons why. You know, I wanted to raise my kids. I wanted to be home.
Sure.
I had the opportunity to do that. You know, with TNA.
And you mentioned that the invasion angle probably would have changed the business if guys like you had been able to, and Goldberg and other guys had actually invaded. You know, we got some great stars, but we didn't get the marquee names, except for, say, a Booker T and a DDP, the marquee names for years. We didn't get the Icon. We didn't get Hall and Nash. We did later, but not at the time. That would have changed the business probably in forever if that would have happened.
I mean, let's just go to WrestleMania 2015. When, you know, me against Triple H, and you got both groups, and the nostalgia of every single name that was in that ring at one time. I just did an autograph session here in the last few weeks, a couple of them. So many pictures of that shot of all of us in the ring together at the same time.
What an incredible moment.
Yeah, but I mean, see, it's something that fans, I mean, they tell me constantly, I never believed ever that I would see that, you know? It was like it was the ultimate for them, you know, so.
And then you have the championship match with Seth Rollins. It looked like, you know, the fans were chanting, "You still got it." And you do, because I was sitting there calling the match. And then all of a sudden, something happened. And it scared me and Michael Cole to death. We thought something had happened because we knew that there was some type of mechanical problem with your body. Something wasn't working. We thought maybe it had an aneurysm, a stroke, something in your spine. We didn't know.
Sting is spent. Absolutely spent. He might be hurt. He ducked under that clothesline, but then he just collapsed. And the official going to call for the ringside doctor.
What happened in that match where all of a sudden you had a problem with your neck?
I was on Seth's buckle bump, you know, which is a standard, real easy thing to do. And not his fault, my fault all the way, but the first time it whiplashed my neck back really bad, and I had shocks going down to my fingertips on both sides. If you watch, you can see me, you know, trying to shake it out of my hands. I was fine, and I'd had stingers like that before, but this one was pretty radical. And he hoisted me up for the second one and you know, clicked my head in and said, "Come on now, this is easy." And the same thing happened. I have no idea why or how, but, you know, my head whiplashed back again, and this time it was my legs began to feel kind of like they weren't there, like rubber. And so I didn't have control over them anymore. Like the strength was just gone. So I went down to all fours and kind of crawled around and made my way to a corner, and doctors are coming out. Now I know everyone in the arena is figuring out, okay, something really happened here.
Right.
And, you know, then the crowd starts chanting, and doctors are saying, what happened, what happened? And all I could think was, it can't end this way. Right. It just cannot end this way.
How are you now?
I feel normal.
You're not going to have surgery on the neck?
I am supposed to have surgery, but I'm having so many mixed messages out there. And, you know, the one thing I keep hearing is, if you're not having side effects and you're okay, then don't do it, you know?
You've had so many big moments.
Yeah.
Your most recent accolade, being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. During your speech, you made a shocking announcement, which took many by surprise.
On this very night, at this very moment, I'm going to finish my wrestling career under the WWE umbrella, and I'm so proud of that. I am officially going to retire tonight. This isn't a goodbye, it's just see you later.
So is this one of the reasons you feel like there's unfinished business? Because you didn't want to go out like that. You wanted to finish the match with Seth, and I think deep down you still want that match with Undertaker, probably, that dream matchup.
Yeah, that's the unfinished business. I've always wanted to have that match. I know wrestling fans have always wanted to see it too, so.
Does the surgery mean you're done?
I would have to say probably yes. Yeah.
So part of your decision may be to put off the surgery if there is that one last way that you want to finish. Because you want to finish, as they say on a boxer, on your feet. You want to finish with that last defined moment of, this is it. The man called Sting is riding in the sunset.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it.
What occupies your time now? On an average day, what occupies your time?
Well, times are changing right now, but my family, my kids, my church, my new wife, and I love real estate and wanting to get back into that again, too.
We got the last segment to end with. It's called a no bull segment. So it's one-word answers are...
Oh, I suck at these things.
Well, that's good, because we're going to get that on air. Favorite movie?
Tombstone.
Greatest wrestler, not yourself, of all time?
Shawn Michaels.
Greatest piece of advice you've ever gotten in your life?
Submit to God in heaven above.
Favorite opponent of all time?
Ric Flair.
What you feel was your greatest accomplishment?
It's going to have to be that day in August of 1998 when I had my moment of truth, when I accepted Jesus Christ.
If you had do you have any goals in life left to accomplish that you look at and think, okay, this is on my bucket list?
It would have to be just to be able to watch all of my kids be happily married and equally yoked with their spouse and walking with God.
How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the wrestler who really, really worked hard to entertain and had a good, strong work ethic and thought about others before himself, and one who loved God.
I don't know you well, but doing this interview, I've learned you really are the good guy that everybody says that you are, which to me is a remarkable accomplishment. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
This season on Legends with JBL.
Vince sues you guys, and all of a sudden you're in a deposition.
You knew Vince was going to see it, so it was almost like a performance.
You were homeless. So you go from being this champion to everything is falling apart. At 8 years old, you're told, get out of your house. The Nazis have rolled in.
Naturally, we panicked.
A tape comes out about the guy you worked with for so many years, Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Is Hulk Hogan a racist? What did you think about some of the champions that just followed you?
I was never a fan of Hogan. I was never impressed with his quality of performance in the ring.
The match that you have with Bruno in the Garden, you break Bruno's neck.
Looks could have killed. I would have been dead.
A lot of wrestlers, they were drinking the Kool-Aid and saying I was a piece of crap.
A list of names?
You want a name?
Yes.
I'm going to give you this name.